Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Job 9. Now Job in chapter 9 here is responding to Bildad. Bildad had one chapter there in his first interaction with Job while they were speaking. So get my earbud back in place here. There we go. So he's now responding to Bildad. There is no mediator. Then Job answered and said, Truly I know it is so. But how can a man be righteous before God? Great question. Man can't unless someone steps in his place. Verse 3, if one wished to contend with him, he could not answer him one time out of 1,000. True. Very true. God is wise in heart and mighty in strength. Who has hardened himself against him and prospered? Nobody. See, this reminds me of that joke. Joke's been around a long time. A bunch of world leaders and scientists are all in a room, and they said we've learned how to cure every disease. We've created limbs to be able to replace organically. We've extended life beyond any purpose or any design. We've conquered all these things, discovered all these things, and learned all these things. We don't need you anymore, God. We don't need him anymore. And God appeared and said, really? And they all were whisked away, and everybody reappears in the middle. It's a mountain surrounded by mountains, a meadow, beautiful flowers, everything all just gorgeous, stream flowing through, and they're all standing there. And God is standing there. And he reaches down and scoops up some dirt, gets some water in it, he makes clay, and he forms it into a man, and then breathes life into him, just like in the book of Genesis. And he looks at the world leaders and the scientists and says, can you do that? And the scientist, the first lead guy, he comes out, he goes to bend over to scoop up dirt, and God says, get your own dirt. And I love that because that's how people are today. They think they've got it all figured out. But you didn't discover anything. It's always been there. You're just seeing what's right in front of you. You're just seeing what's already been created. Hey, this is something new. No, it's not new. And that's what this reminds me of. That's what a lot of stuff in the Bible reminds me of. Who can answer God? Nobody can. God speaks. We be silent. God is wise in heart and mighty in strength. Who has hardened himself against him and prospered? Nobody. Nobody who has ever hardened himself against God has ever prospered. Nobody ever will. Verse 5, he removes the mountains, and they do not know when he overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble. He commands the sun, and it does not rise. He seals off the stars. He alone spreads out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. He made the Bear, Orion, and the Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. How did Job know about that? Because Job comes from way, way back. Way, way back. How did he know about that? Verse 10, he does great things past finding out. Yes, wonders without number. Like how you can have two different densities of water in the same body. How you can have one body at the bottom of another body of water, and they be two completely different types of water. So different that whatever sea life enters that lower body dies, but lives on the other one, and there's a perfect line between them. He creates a worm, looks like a caterpillar, that feeds on solid propane. Because at the bottom of the deepest parts of the ocean, there's these plumes that look like mushrooms, and it's propane that has come out, and the water is so dense that it solidifies and turns into these little mushroom-looking things, and these big worms eat it. They consume it and process it. Incredible. I forget when they discovered this. They were down there doing research for, I guess they were going to put in a deep oil platform, and they saw these things, and they couldn't believe their eyes. Something they were like, this is a new creature. No, it's not new. He's always been there. God always creates everything to work with everything in his environment. So how amazing that all this time back that Job knew about these things. And he does things and has things going on that we don't even know about. Have you ever heard of an asphalt volcano? They're down in the ocean. And they push out. In fact, there's, I think, one or two in the Dead Sea. And they have these great big lumps of asphalt come floating up. And it happens out there in the Gulf. You'll find big chunks of it on the beach. We thought it was kind of neat. Hey, why is there asphalt up here? We thought somebody was dumping it in the water and it was washing up there. Nope, there's an asphalt volcano off the coast of Texas. A couple of them. And all it does is just push out petroleum. Kind of interesting. This is all God's doing. This is God's creation. Verse 11, if he goes by me, I do not see him. If he moves past, I do not perceive him. That's the truth. Verse 12, if he takes away, who can hinder him? Who can say to him, what are you doing? God will not withdraw his anger. The allies of the proud lie prostrate beneath him. How then can I answer him and choose my words to reason with him? How then can I answer him and choose my words to reason with him? Who are we to speak against God? Believer and non-believer alike. Verse 15, for though I were righteous, I could not answer him. I would beg mercy of my judge. If I called and he answered me, I would not believe that he was listening to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. Well, there actually is a cause for it, but Job didn't know that at the time. He will not allow me to catch my breath, but fills me with bitterness. If it is a matter of strength, indeed, he is strong. And if of justice, who will appoint my day in court? This is interesting that he's mentioning this. Though I were righteous, my own mouth would condemn me. Though I were blameless, it would prove me perverse. I am blameless, yet I do not know myself. I despise my life. It is all one thing. Therefore I say he destroys the blameless and the wicked. If the scourge slays suddenly, he laughs at the plight of the innocent. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of his judges. If it is not he, who else could it be? No one else. Now Job is upset, so he's saying some things that aren't necessarily true, but Job has a much greater understanding than I think people realize. He's just going at it with a severe amount of emotion because of his situation. Verse 25. Now my days are swifter than a runner. They flee away. They see no good. They pass by like swift ships, like an eagle swooping on its prey. If I say, I will forget my complaint, I will put off my sad face and wear a smile, like most of us do today, I am afraid of all my sufferings. I know that you will not hold me innocent. If I am condemned, why then do I labor in vain? If I wash myself with snow water and cleanse my hands with soap, yet you will plunge me into the pit, and my own clothes will abhor me. For he is not a man as I am, that I may answer him, and that we should go to court together. Nor is there any mediator between us, who may lay his hand on us both. This is a very interesting statement by Job here. See, Jesus wasn't around at that time, and nobody knew about Jesus per se at that time, because the atonement hadn't come. Now, I say that, but there was a knowledge of him. We're going to see that here. I don't know if it's in this chapter or in the next one, but we're going to see that. And Job makes this admission. Nor is there any mediator between us who may lay his hand on us both. Let him take his rod away from me. and do not let dread of him terrify me. Then I would speak and not fear him. But it is not so with me. Now, back at that time, that's how things were, and that's how the understanding was. There was no Messiah at that time. Yet, God still was in the position of Messiah, of deliverer. Now, the men back then actually had a knowledge of a coming Messiah, of Jesus Christ. A lot of it is hinted at in their writings. Some wrote of it very directly, that there was one coming that was going to deal with this. But at that time, there wasn't. Now, Job is upset, so he's speaking from his heart. We read these words and go, well, look how he's talking against God, but he's not actually talking against God. He's being honest. He's not speaking negative against God because what he said is true. But it may be not for the reasons he thinks it's happening. Because God can't be vindictive. So he's not cursing God. He's just speaking from his heart, from his situation. But he speaks with wisdom here. And his friends are probably sitting there going, well, okay, well, he almost did it. He almost repented, but then again he didn't. And then he almost cursed God, but then again he didn't. Job's not doing that. Because Job knows better. And he's making this very clear. I am not in a position to tell God what he's doing wrong in my life. I don't know my life. He does. Before I was there, God has always been there. After I'm gone, God will always be there. But he speaks very wise words because he knows who his God is. And that's the big takeaway from this. He knows who his God is. He knows him quite specifically. And he's very open and honest with his confession. Now, I don't know what chapter it's in. It may be the next one. I would plead with God. Maybe the next one. But I know he says a lot more of the same stuff in here. It's a continuation of chapter 9. At one point, I think he mentions, I know my Redeemer. I don't remember what chapter it is. We'll get to that. But you can see here, Job is upset, but he's not making the mistake of blaming God for it. He's giving credit to God where credit is due. You know, when somebody blames God, because it sounds like that's what he's doing, but if somebody blames God, this is your fault. But he's not saying that. He's giving credit where credit is due. But he's not blaming God for it. He's saying, Lord, you are these things. Who am I to question it? And that's wisdom. But now he's still in a position where he's very upset of the situation. He confesses this he's going to confess this in chapter 10, where he says, I loathe my life. My soul loathes my life. Again, I think we can go back to the first chapter, because now we're getting hints. Why would he loathe his life? I mean, and we can see this has taken place because we had a timestamp in a recent chapter. This is taking place over a relatively short period of time. Why would he loathe his life so much after just that short period of time? I think there was more going on. More clues and more hints start to lead you to believe that there was much more happening that wasn't fully recorded. The first chapter just gives us hints that he may have actually had many more concerns and many more stresses and many more issues long before any of this happened. But he stood with God. So he's has some heavy burdens on his heart. And what he needs to learn to do is to take those burdens and lay them to the Lord. It may be God, and just what we talk about in morning devotion yesterday. Of course, I'm filming this the same day, but I'm saying yesterday so it makes sense. Or the day before yesterday. In Isaiah 30. God waits to show more grace. So we may be in a situation here where this is unfolding not only for God to prove Satan who he really is, so he would show himself to everybody, which he ended up doing, but also to take Job to a place, to the end of himself, where he needed to be, so that he would turn and look with joy, with peace, with thanksgiving on what he had, and not be so upset about that situation. But instead to realize God has control. He's teaching Job. We're going to see more evidence of this as it unfolds, but he's teaching Job. And Job is going to learn to let this stuff go and not let it bother him. And again, to me, this is another example of us. And as we go through this life, how it gets down to that last moment, and we learn just to look to the Lord and trust in Him. And what happens? We go to heaven, and it's so much more than we could possibly imagine. Job has no idea what's going to come in the future. And what does God do with him at the end? Gives him double. We got a lot of lessons to learn from Job. I'm glad we're in this book. I think it's important we're in this book now, because with the way things are unfolding around the world now, this may be a great time for us to learn more, be more contemplative about the lessons in the Bible, but also to pay more attention and to always keep in the forefront of our thoughts that God always provides and is always in control no matter what we see happen. Things are probably going to get worse for us here. Don't be surprised if they do. We were warned. And I have this nagging thing, and I've always had it. 10 days. Some of you know what verse I'm talking about. I can't see where that applies to anybody back then. It may apply to us now. I don't know. But it keeps popping up. 10 days. So if we see that particular event, we know, start the counter. 10 days, we're out of here. Because that's what the verse says. So anyway, let's keep going through Job and let's see what else we can discover. I think it'll be to all of our benefit. I love you all. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.